The galaxy was full of stars, billions of them burning in silence. To most, this silence was beautiful. To some, it was terrifying. And on one forgotten world, at the edge of a spiral arm, silence had turned into fear. The people of Zeroth Prime, an ancient alien civilization, were in trouble. They were not weak. For thousands of years, their fleets had guarded trade routes. Their cities were filled with light, their science advanced beyond imagination. Yet even their power could not protect them from what was coming. It began as whispers, ships disappearing, colonies going dark, whole star systems suddenly empty. At first, the Zeroth believed it was rebellion, maybe pirates, maybe a rival empire testing them. But soon, survivors arrived. Their stories were the same. They consume everything. They do not speak. They do not stop. They are endless. The Droll Swarm. Not a single empire had ever defeated them. The swarm did not conquer to rule. It consumed. Planets became ash. Cities were stripped to dust. Even the dead were not left behind. The Droll ate, absorbed, and grew. Every battle made them stronger. Every defeat for the galaxy became more soldiers for the swarm. The Zeroth Council sat in their grand chamber, crystal towers rising above the planet's capital. For the first time in centuries, the chamber was silent. The generals had no plan. The scientists had no cure. And the people, terrified, looked to their leaders for hope. But hope was fading. One elder, his scales pale with age, finally spoke. "We cannot fight them alone. We must call for help." Murmurs spread across the council. Help? From whom? The nearby empires had already refused. The Kryn Dominion had sealed its borders. The Tovari coalition declared neutrality. The Valari Empire, proud and strong, simply said, "We will wait and see who survives." One by one, doors closed. No one dared challenge the Droll Swarm. The elder raised his head. "Then we must look beyond. We must send the signal. To all who will listen. Even the young species." The words dropped like a stone in water. Gasps echoed through the chamber. "You mean them?" another counselor asked, voice sharp with disbelief. "The primitives? The mammals from the blue planet?" "Yes," the elder said. His eyes glowed with a mix of fear and determination. "Humans." The signal. The decision was made. Across Zeroth Prime, engineers worked night and day to prepare the Beacon of Pleasance, a massive transmitter older than their civilization itself. It had only been used once before, in a war so ancient that its stories were now legend. The beacon's core glowed, pulsing with power. The engineers aligned it with the galactic web, calculating the paths of radio waves, quantum echoes, and faster-than-light pulses. The message would spread in every direction, desperate fingers reaching into the void. When the hour came, the council stood before the beacon. The elder, chosen as the voice, lifted his hand. His words would travel across space, perhaps never to be heard, or perhaps to change the future. The broadcast began. "To any who can hear this, we are the people of Zeroth Prime. We are under attack by the Droll Swarm. They are endless, merciless, and unstoppable. Worlds fall before them, and we are next. We beg for aid. We beg for allies. If you can fight, fight with us. If you can save, save us. If you hear this, please, do not let us fall alone." The signal stretched outward, leaping across stars, brushing past comets, sliding through dust clouds. Empires heard it. Some laughed. Some ignored it. Some turned their scanners away, unwilling to risk even listening. But far away, on a small blue world orbiting an ordinary yellow sun, the signal was caught. Earth receives the call. It began as static in a deep space array in Australia. At first, the scientists thought it was interference. But then, the pattern repeated, structured, clear, intelligent. "Dr. Patel, you'd better see this." In a dimly lit control room, the team huddled around screens. The data scrolled fast. Too fast. But it wasn't just noise. It was language. A language, not from Earth. Within hours, the signal reached the United Nations Science Council. Within days, every intelligence agency had a copy. Within weeks, the entire planet knew the truth. We are not alone. And someone out there needs help. The reaction was chaos. Governments panicked. Some called it a trap. Others claimed it was fake. Religious leaders preached, some calling it a test from God, others warning of demons. Social media exploded with arguments, memes, jokes, and fear. But underneath all the noise, one question grew louder. Should we answer? Debate among humanity. At the United Nations headquarters, the world leaders gathered. The chamber was heavy with tension. This is none of our business, one leader said. We are not ready for galactic wars. If this swarm is real, another replied, then it will come for us eventually. But we don't even know who these Zeroth are, a third argued. What if they are lying? The debate raged for hours. For every reason to help, there were 10 reasons to stay silent. Humanity was still young, still fragile. Earth had only just begun to explore its own solar system. Mars colonies were small. Space travel was slow. Weapons were powerful, yes, but compared to galactic empires? They were ants holding spears. But then, in the middle of the argument, an unexpected voice spoke. Admiral Rachel Voss, commander of Earth's Joint Space Defense Fleet, stood tall. We cannot ignore this. If we wait until the swarm reaches us, it will be too late. Better to fight with allies than die alone. The chamber quieted. Her words carried weight, not just as a soldier but as a strategist. And besides, she added softly, what kind of species do we want to be remembered as? The ones who turned their backs, or the ones who stood when no one else would? Decision made. It was not unanimous. Many nations still opposed. Some leaders walked out in protest. But finally, Earth voted. Humanity would respond. Not with promises of great fleets. Not with boasts of unstoppable weapons. No, humanity would answer with something else. Something no alien empire expected. A message was sent back through the stars. Zeroth Prime. We have heard your call. We are coming. Humanity will help. Reaction of the Zeroth. When the Zeroth received the human reply, the council gathered again. The words were displayed on shimmering holograms. Some laughed bitterly. This is our salvation? The primitives. They are children, another sneered. Barely into the stars. They have no fleets. No ancient weapons. No power. But the elder, the same who had spoken before, did not laugh. His voice was quiet, but it carried through the chamber. I do not know why, but I feel this may be enough. We asked for help, and help has come. Outside, in the skies of Zeroth Prime, the swarm scouts were already seen. Black shapes drifting between the stars. The storm was almost here. And the only answer the galaxy had given was humanity. Closing hook, end of part 1. The Zeroth people waited, hearts heavy with fear. Across the stars, humans prepared, hearts heavy with determination. The Droll swarm was coming. The galaxy had abandoned the Zeroth. But humanity had answered. And that answer would change everything. The human message reached Zeroth Prime after weeks of silence. To the desperate aliens, every second had felt like a lifetime. When the transmission finally appeared, the council gathered once again. The words were simple. Zeroth Prime. We have heard your call. We are coming. Humanity will help. The chamber erupted with disbelief. This is their answer. One counselor snapped, his wings twitching with anger. A handful of mammals from a forgotten world. Another spat. What can they possibly bring? Perhaps they misunderstood. Perhaps they think this is a game. But the elder, who had first suggested contacting the humans, raised his voice. Do not underestimate them. They chose to answer when no one else did. The council fell silent, though none were convinced. What could these humans offer against the endless swarm? Still, the signal had been sent, and a response had come. Now, all that remained was to wait. Preparing on Earth. On Earth, the decision had shaken the world. Some celebrated. Others protested in the streets. News outlets broadcast arguments day and night. Should humans risk extinction for aliens we've never met? But governments had already voted. Humanity would act. At the Joint Space Command headquarters in Geneva, the plan began to form. Admiral Rachel Voss stood before a glowing map of the stars, red markers spreading like a disease. Each marker was a system devoured by the Droll swarm. "They're advancing faster than we thought," she said, voice steady. "By the time our ships reach Zeroth Prime, the swarm may already be there." Around her, generals, scientists, and diplomats debated. Earth did not have the fleets of great empires. Humanity's warships numbered in the dozens, not thousands. Their colonies were small, their experience limited. But humanity had something else. "Brute strength won't win this war," Admiral Voss continued. "We need creativity. We need adaptability. That's what we bring to the table." The plan was not to send their largest ships. Those were few, and Earth still needed them for defense. Instead, humanity would send something unexpected, a task force of specialists. Soldiers, engineers, medics, scientists, and most importantly, strategists. Alongside them would be Earth's newest invention, adaptive war drones, machines designed to learn in battle, adjusting tactics in real time. No empire had dared build such unpredictable technology. For aliens, war was tradition, predictable, ritualistic. For humans, war was chaos, and they had learned to master it. The task force would be small, barely a fraction of what other empires might send. But it carried humanity's most dangerous weapon, ingenuity. The human fleet. Weeks later, deep in orbit above Earth, ships prepared for launch. The fleet was modest, a handful of frigates, 2 heavy carriers, and 1 command ship, the Horizon Dawn. Compared to alien armadas, it was nothing. To humanity, it was everything. On the Horizon Dawn, Captain Elias Rourke stood at the bridge, his jaw set. He was not the most decorated officer, but he was chosen for one reason: he thought differently. Where others saw defeat, he found paths no one else imagined. Beside him, Dr. Lin Mei, a scientist from Beijing, oversaw the drone systems. Each drone was small, no larger than a fighter jet, but each carried adaptive cores capable of rewriting their combat code mid-battle. They could learn, copy, and outthink. "Are we really doing this?" one young officer whispered as the crew readied for departure. Captain Rourke turned. His eyes were tired but sharp. "We are. Because no one else will." The words spread through the crew like fire. Fear was still there, yes, but also pride. Humanity was stepping into the unknown. Reactions from the galaxy. As the human fleet left Earth, news traveled fast. Across the galaxy, powerful empires mocked the decision. "The humans are fools," laughed the Kryn Dominion. "They send ants to fight giants," sneered the Valari Empire. "Better to stay silent than to die screaming," whispered the Tovari Coalition. But there were also whispers of respect. Some neutral worlds admired the courage, even if they believed it would end in tragedy. For the first time in memory, a young species dared to stand where ancient empires would not. Arrival at Zeroth Prime. When the human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel above Zeroth Prime, the alien world trembled with anticipation. Thousands gathered in cities, watching the sky as strange ships appeared like shadows against the stars. In the council chamber, leaders stood frozen as the human ships broadcast their arrival. "This is Captain Elias Rourke of the United Earth Fleet. We come as allies." The Zeroth counselors stared at the holograms of human ships. They were small, plain, lacking the elegance of galactic cruisers. Some counselors shook their heads in despair. This is it. This is their strength. We are doomed. But again, the elder silenced them. They came when no one else did. Judge them not by size, but by what they bring. When the humans landed, Zeroth citizens crowded to see them. For many, it was the first time seeing a human up close. The creatures were strange, two-legged, soft-skinned, eyes bright with determination. They were not impressive in appearance, fragile compared to armored Zeroth warriors. But their presence carried something else, something the Zeroth could not name. Captain Rourke and Admiral Voss were welcomed in the Grand Hall. The council asked the question burning in their minds. Where is your fleet? Where are your armies? Where is your power? Rourke's answer was simple. Our power is not in numbers. It is in how we fight. The council was unimpressed. But time was short. The swarm was approaching. First strategy session. The Zeroth generals explained their situation. Defense lines were collapsing. Fortresses were falling. The swarm consumed everything. We cannot hold them, a general admitted. We have tried every formation, every weapon. They always adapt. Dr. Lin May leaned forward. That is their weakness. The generals looked at her, confused. Weakness? They have none. They adapt slowly, she explained. But what if something adapts faster than them? What if every time they change, we change quicker? The Zeroth stared. They had never considered such thinking. War, for them, was about tradition, strength, and formation. But humans thought differently. Captain Rourke placed a hand on the table. Let us show you. Give us one battle. One chance. If we fail, you lose nothing. If we succeed, maybe you gain everything. The council hesitated. Finally, the elder nodded. One chance. Suspense before the storm. That night, across Zeroth Prime, citizens whispered about the humans. Some mocked them as weak. Others prayed they might be strong. In the streets, children asked their parents, "Can they save us?" In orbit, the human crew prepared. Drones were activated, soldiers checked gear, engineers whispered to each other nervously. The swarm was days away, a shadow spreading across the stars. Captain Rourke stood on the bridge, staring into the void. Admiral Voss joined him. "Do you think we can win?" she asked quietly. He didn't look at her. His eyes stayed on the stars. "We don't have to win. We just have to fight in a way they can't understand. That's our edge." The silence of space stretched before them, heavy and endless. Somewhere out there, the swarm was coming. And humanity was waiting. The Zeroth had begged the galaxy for help. Only humanity answered. But the Zeroth did not yet believe in them. The swarm was approaching, closer every hour. And soon, the galaxy would learn what humanity truly was. The stars above Zeroth Prime flickered like cold fires. But beyond those stars, something darker moved. The swarm was coming. Every telescope, every sensor, every watchtower confirmed it. Black shapes, countless and endless, sliding through the void. The Drawl were near. On the surface, the Zeroth people lived in silence. Their once bright cities had grown quiet, their crystal towers now dimmed by fear. Families gathered together, holding each other, whispering prayers to gods who no longer answered. For them, it felt like the last sunrise. But in orbit, aboard the Horizon Dawn, humans prepared for battle. The calm before the battle. Captain Elias Rourke stood on the bridge, hands clasped behind his back. The screens before him displayed endless rows of enemy signals, red dots multiplying every second. He did not flinch. He only whispered, "So it begins." Admiral Rachel Voss paced slowly, her boots heavy against the steel floor. Her voice cut through the air. "Status. All drones are active," Dr. Lin May replied. Her hands danced across the console. "Adaptive cores online. They're learning already." "Learning what?" one officer asked nervously. "Learning each other," she said with a thin smile. "When the swarm comes, they'll already know how to move as one. The humans were calm, but the Zeroth generals, invited to observe, were not. Their scaled bodies shifted nervously, eyes wide at the sight of so few ships. To them, the human fleet was tiny, fragile, hopeless. "You cannot face the swarm with this," one whispered to Rourke. "It is not enough." Rourke glanced at him, expression unreadable. "You're right. It's not enough. That's why we'll fight differently." The arrival of the swarm. The first signs of the swarm appeared as shadows blotting out starlight. Dozens of ships, then hundreds, then thousands. The Droll swarm spread like ink in water, black hulls moving without formation, without order, yet united in one single purpose: consume. "They're here," a human officer reported, his voice tight. The Zeroth generals shivered. Memories of fallen colonies haunted them. "This is how it always begins," one whispered. "First the darkness, then the silence, then the end." But Captain Rourke did not tremble. He leaned forward, eyes locked on the enemy. "All ships, ready. Drones, prepare to deploy." The order carried through the fleet. Engines roared. Shields flared. Drone bays opened like hungry mouths. Humanity was ready. The first clash. The swarm struck fast. Black ships darted forward, claws of metal tearing through the void. They fired weapons unlike any the Zeroth had seen, energy that ripped apart shields, beams that cracked armor. The human fleet was small, and the swarm moved to crush it in the first wave. Impact in 3, 2, 1. Explosions lit the void as the first swarm ships attacked. But the humans did not break. "Drones, launch," Rourke commanded. From the carriers, hundreds of drones burst outward, tiny machines with wings of steel and eyes of fire. They swarmed like birds, darting between enemy ships. But they did not fly in simple lines. They shifted constantly, zigzagging, splitting, reforming, each move unpredictable. The Zeroth generals gasped. "They fight with chaos." The human drones struck, not with heavy firepower, but with precision. They targeted engines, sensors, communication nodes. They crippled instead of destroying. The Droll ships stumbled, confused, unable to adjust fast enough. Within minutes, the swarm's front wave faltered. Alien shock. In the observation chamber, Zeroth leaders leaned forward in disbelief. "They are winning. Impossible. No one has ever made the swarm stumble. They fight like no species I have seen." For the Zeroth, war had always been about formation, strength, and numbers. Armies moved like machines, each soldier a cog in the same engine. But humans moved like fire. Wild, spreading, uncontrollable. Dr. Lin May's drones adapted every second, rewriting themselves mid-battle. When the Droll changed tactics, the drones shifted again, faster, sharper, stranger. "This is madness," one Zeroth general whispered. "And yet, it works." The turning moment. The Droll, frustrated, poured more ships into the battle. Hundreds became thousands, a flood of darkness. They surrounded the humans, pressing from every side. "Captain, we're being boxed in," an officer shouted. Rourke did not panic. He only nodded. "Good. Exactly where we want them." The officer blinked. "What?" "Trigger pattern Kappa," Rourke ordered. The human ships suddenly split apart, scattering in every direction. The swarm followed, believing they had broken the formation. But this was no retreat, it was a trap. Hidden in the chaos, the drones activated new protocols. They began transmitting false signals, creating ghost images of human ships. To the Droll, it seemed like hundreds of fleets had appeared from nowhere. Their sensors filled with lies. The swarm faltered, confused, turning in circles. In that confusion, human ships struck hard. Torpedoes tore through enemy hulls. Lasers carved black metal into ash. For the first time in their endless march, the Droll hesitated. The Zeroth realized the difference. Back on Zeroth Prime, millions watched live feeds of the battle. Citizens gasped as they saw the swarm stumble, something they thought impossible. Children cheered. Elders wept. In the council chamber, silence fell. One general whispered, They are doing it. They are fighting the swarm, and surviving." Another shook his head in disbelief. "Not just surviving. They are outthinking them." The elder closed his eyes, whispering a single word, "Humans." The swarm strikes back. But victory was not so simple. The Droll were wounded, yes, but not broken. From the darkness, their true strength emerged. Massive hive ships, each the size of a city, bristling with weapons. The ground shook on Zeroth Prime as their shadows eclipsed the stars. "New signatures incoming!" Dr. Lin May shouted. "Hive ships, 3 of them." The human fleet trembled under the new assault. Shields cracked, hulls buckled. Drones were ripped apart in flashes of fire. Admiral Voss gritted her teeth. "If those hive ships break through, Zeroth Prime is lost." Captain Rourke's face was stone. "Then we don't let them. Humanity's gamble." He turned to Lin May. "Activate the overclock protocol." Her eyes widened. "That's untested. It could burn the drones out in minutes." "Minutes is all we need," Rourke said firmly. With a reluctant nod, Lin May entered the command. Across the fleet, the drones' cores flared brighter, pushing their systems beyond safe limits. Suddenly, the drones moved faster, sharper, like lightning given wings. They darted through hive ship defenses, weaving patterns too quick for the enemy to follow. They struck at weak points, slicing through armor, planting charges deep inside. One hive ship exploded in a burst of black fire. The second staggered, bleeding sparks. The third turned its guns wildly, unable to track the chaos. The humans had turned the tide again, but at a cost. Drones burned out by the hundreds, their cores collapsing under the strain. The world watches. On Zeroth Prime, the people screamed in awe. They had never seen such bravery, such recklessness. To throw away machines so willingly, to risk so much for a chance at victory, it was madness. And yet, it worked. In the council chamber, no one mocked the humans now. Even the most doubtful generals sat in silence, eyes wide. "These are not primitives," one whispered. "These are not fools. These are dangerous." The elder only nodded. "They are something the galaxy has never seen before." The final blow. The battle raged for hours. By the end, 2 hive ships were destroyed, the third retreating into darkness. The swarm, for the first time in centuries, withdrew. When the silence returned, the stars above Zeroth Prime were littered with debris. Broken swarm ships, shattered drones, and burning wreckage. The human fleet, battered but alive, held position. Their numbers were small, their losses heavy. But they had done the impossible. They had made the swarm retreat. Aftermath. In the Horizon Dawn's medical bay, soldiers lay wounded, their faces pale but proud. Engineers wept over burned-out drones, knowing their sacrifice had bought victory. Captain Rourke walked the halls quietly, speaking little. His crew looked at him with new eyes, not just as a leader, but as something more. A man who had stared into the abyss and refused to blink. On Zeroth Prime, the council met once again. This time, there was no laughter, no doubt. "We asked for help," one counselor said softly. "And they gave us hope." The elder stood tall, his voice heavy with meaning. The galaxy turned away. The humans stepped forward. "Remember this day, for it is the day everything changed." The swarm had tasted defeat. Humanity had shown its first hand. But the war was not over. The Droll would return, stronger, angrier, hungrier. And the galaxy would soon learn, the most dangerous species was not the swarm. It was humanity. The galaxy had watched in awe and disbelief. For the first time, the Droll swarm had been pushed back. But aboard the Horizon Dawn, there was no celebration. Not yet. Captain Elias Rourke stood on the bridge, eyes fixed on the stars. The swarm had retreated, yes, but only for now. The hive ships would return. The black tide would regroup. And when it did, they would come with a vengeance. Admiral Rachel Voss joined him quietly. They're stronger than anything we've ever faced. Are we ready for what comes next? Rourke didn't answer immediately. He watched the fleet spread below, drones still hovering in orbit, human ships battered but holding formation. Finally, he said, we adapt. That's what makes us ready. That's what no one else can do. Dr. Lin May added, and we have more to teach them than they realize. The Droll think in patterns. We don't follow patterns. We create them and break them. The humans had shown the first taste of their ingenuity. But the swarm had learned something too. Their movements were no longer random. They adapted, faster, smarter. Each new wave tested the humans' limits. The Zeroth witness. Back on Zeroth Prime, the Council watched live feeds with growing amazement. These humans, one general murmured, they do not fight like any species we have known. They do not follow tradition. They think differently. They are dangerous, said another. Not in the way you think. Not with weapons, not with fleets, but with mind, with creativity, with chaos. The elder nodded slowly. They have become our greatest hope. But also a warning. Perhaps the galaxy underestimated them for too long. Citizens on the planet cheered whenever human ships appeared on screens. They whispered the new name, the humans who do not quit. Humans adapt. The next attack came faster than anyone predicted. 3 weeks after the first encounter, the Droll returned with renewed strength. Their hive ships moved with precision now, and swarms of smaller vessels filled the void. Status report. Admiral Voss demanded. Dr. Lin May pointed to the sensors. They've learned from the last battle. They're predicting our moves. Rourke's face tightened. Then we need to move differently. Full adaptive mode. Every drone, every ship, unpredictably. We break their expectations. Orders were given. Human ships split into smaller squadrons. Drones moved in patterns that had never been tested. Engineers monitored systems on the edge of overload. Soldiers prepared for a fight that might push them beyond endurance. The Zeroth observed nervously. Do they know what they are doing? One general whispered. They are improvising. Yes, the elder replied. And it works. Breaking the swarm. The battle began in silence, then erupted into chaos. Drones darted like lightning, weaving between Droll vessels. Human pilots acted in tandem, anticipating each move. The swarm was powerful, yes. Their numbers were overwhelming. But they were predictable in ways humans had learned to exploit. The humans struck weak points, sabotaged engines, hacked control systems remotely. The Zeroth could barely comprehend it. In their history, war had been about order, discipline, overwhelming force. Humans fought like fire. Wild, spreading, unpredictable. The tide began to shift. One by one, the Droll ships faltered. Hive ships were slowed. Smaller swarms retreated in confusion. The humans did not just fight, they reshaped the battlefield. Humans teach the Zeroth. The humans did not keep their methods secret. Captain Rourke called meetings with Zeroth generals. Your soldiers are brave, he said, but they fight like statues. Predictable, steady, but limited. Watch, learn, and adapt. You can survive if you think like we do. The Zeroth studied humans closely. They watched drones weave between attacks. They observed pilots using environmental hazards, asteroid fields, radiation belts, even debris, to their advantage. They saw humans turn a disadvantage into strength, fear into strategy. Gradually, the Zeroth began to change. They adopted human tactics, using unpredictability and creativity. In a way they had never imagined, humans were teaching them how to survive. The turning point. The second encounter with the swarm reached its climax. Hive ships moved aggressively, black shadows blotting out stars. Smaller drawl vessels swarmed the human fleet. But humans had anticipated it. A coordinated strike was unleashed. Drones darted from hidden angles. Pilots acted in perfect sync. Ships feigned retreat, luring drawl into traps. Explosions rocked the void. For the first time in centuries, the drawl were overwhelmed. They did not adapt fast enough. Their hive ships staggered, engines failing. Swarms scattered. Confusion spread. The Zeroth watched in shock. "They are winning," one shouted. "They are defeating the swarm." And they were. Not with sheer power, but with ingenuity. With adaptation. With courage and creativity no one had seen before. Recognition of humanity. After the battle, the Zeroth Council called a meeting. Every leader attended. The humans were invited, modest in their bearing, though battered from battle. One counselor spoke first. "We asked for help. We expected strength. We did not expect this. You fight differently. You think differently. You have taught us what we did not know." The elder added, voice strong, "Perhaps it is time the galaxy sees the truth. Humans are not weak. Humans are not simple. Humans are extraordinary." The humans said little. Captain Rourke only nodded. "We fight with everything we are. That is what you saw today. Strength comes in many forms. Sometimes it comes from courage. Sometimes from ingenuity. Sometimes from refusing to surrender." The council remained silent, absorbing the words. This species, small, young, underestimated, had changed the course of the galaxy, preparing for the next wave. Victory was temporary. The drawl would regroup, more cunning and vicious than before. The humans knew it. Captain Rourke addressed his fleet. "They will come again. Stronger, faster, smarter. We will adapt again. Every loss will teach us. Every move will prepare us. We do not fight for glory. We fight to survive, and to protect those who cannot defend themselves." The Zeroth were listening now. They had learned from humans. They would no longer fight as before. Together, they would prepare. Dr. Lin May smiled at the screens, watching drones repair themselves, preparing for the next wave. "This is just the beginning," she said softly. And she was right. Suspense before the next battle. As the fleet repaired, the Zeroth cities breathed a sigh of relief. But no one truly celebrated. The black shadows of the swarm were still out there. In the depths of space, the drawl were plotting, adapting. They had tasted defeat for the first time, and they would return hungrier. On Horizon Dawn, Captain Rourke stood alone in the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly before him. Somewhere out there, the swarm waited. "And they will come," he whispered. "But so will we. And next time, it will be even harder. And we will be ready." The turning point had been reached. Humanity had proven itself. But the war was far from over. The galaxy had begun to notice humanity, not as a weak young species, but as a force unlike any other. The drawl swarm would return. Stronger, deadlier, relentless. But humanity had changed the rules of war. And when the next wave arrived, everything would be different. The black shadows of the drawl swarm had returned. This time, they were different. The hive ships moved with deadly precision, hundreds of smaller vessels darting in perfect coordination. Every previous weakness the humans had exploited had been studied. Every tactic remembered. The galaxy watched once more as the battle began above Zeroth Prime. Millions of eyes turned toward the stars, holding their breath. But humanity did not tremble. They had fought before. They had adapted. They had learned. And they had taught the Zeroth to do the same. Humans lead the charge. Captain Elias Rourke stood on the bridge of Horizon Dawn, calm and focused. He surveyed the swarm, the enemy fleet stretching endlessly into space. His ships were damaged, some barely operational. The drones, though fewer in number than before, glimmered with new energy. Status? Admiral Rachel Voss asked. Drones ready, ships ready, Zeroth fleet integrated, Rourke replied. We have one advantage, the Droll expect the same fight they faced before. We won't give it to them. The human fleet surged forward, not in straight lines but in shifting formations, unpredictable and wild. Drones darted like swarms of lightning, weaving between ships, striking at engines, sensors, weapons. The Zeroth watched in awe as humans took the lead, coordinating attacks that seemed impossible. Even the Elder, who had seen countless wars in his long life, whispered, "They fight like nothing I have ever known. This is not just war. This is art." The swarm's fury. The Droll struck with fury. Hive ships unleashed waves of energy, black fire streaking through space. Smaller vessels attacked relentlessly, trying to overwhelm the humans and their allies. For a moment, it seemed the swarm might succeed. Ships buckled, drones exploded in bursts of fire, and the Zeroth fleet wavered. But the humans did not falter. Adaptive Protocol Delta, Dr. Lin May announced. Every drone shifted in unison, changing tactics mid-battle. Ships split, feigned retreats, and circled back unexpectedly. Humans used the swarm's own aggression against them, turning attacks into traps. Every move was unpredictable. Every strike precise. The Droll, for the first time, hesitated. Confusion spread through the enemy ranks. Humanity's greatest weapon. The Zeroth had seen power in fleets, weapons, and numbers. They had seen war fought with precision and strength. But humanity brought something new: creativity, adaptability, and a refusal to surrender. Captain Rourke ordered the most dangerous maneuver yet. A small squad of ships, led by humans, would draw the attention of the largest hive ship, baiting it into a trap. "Are you sure?" an officer asked nervously. Rourke nodded. "It's the only way. They can't predict what we're about to do." The squad darted toward the hive ship, weaving and splitting. The swarm's sensors tracked them, preparing to strike. But the humans had anticipated every move. Hidden drones detonated in waves, crippling engines and shields. When the squad turned, the hive ship was trapped. Charges placed in precise locations ignited, and the massive vessel exploded in a silent, blinding fire. The swarm reeled. For the first time, a hive ship had fallen at the hands of humans. The Zeroth realized the truth. The council chamber erupted in astonishment. "It cannot be," a general cried. "How can such a small species accomplish this?" The Elder rose, voice steady and commanding. "It is because they fight with something we have forgotten. Everything they are. Humans do not rely solely on strength. They use courage, ingenuity, and the will to survive. That is their true power." Across the galaxy, the message spread. The young, small, seemingly weak species had become the most dangerous force anyone had ever encountered. Not because of weapons or numbers, but because of who they were. The swarm retreats. The Droll fleet, disoriented and suffering heavy losses, began to retreat. Black shapes scattered into the void, engines damaged, systems failing. The humans did not chase recklessly. They let the enemy flee, understanding that some victories were about survival, not annihilation. The Zeroth cheered. Humanity had done what no empire, no fleet, and no ancient species could do. They had not only stopped the Droll, they had changed the rules of the galaxy. Captain Rourke watched the retreating swarm silently. He knew this was not the end. The Droll would return, stronger, smarter, angrier. But humans would be ready. Always. Recognition and respect. In the days following the battle, the Zeroth and other allied species began to see humans in a new light. The young species who had once been underestimated, dismissed as primitive, were now recognized as something extraordinary. The Elder addressed the council. "We asked for help. We did not expect this. They have shown us that strength is not only in numbers or weapons. Strength is in spirit, in courage, in creativity. They have changed the galaxy. Captain Rourke responded simply, with his trademark calm, "We did what we had to do. That is all." But the galaxy knew it was more than that. Humanity had proven that a species could rise from seeming weakness to unmatched power, not through domination, but through intelligence, courage, and will. Humanity's legacy. As repairs began on Zeroth Prime and the human fleet, stories spread throughout the galaxy. Tales of the small species who refused to surrender, who outsmarted the unstoppable swarm, who taught allies to fight in new ways. Humans became legends in every corner of space. On Earth, news of the victory spread slowly. Few understood the scale, the danger, or the creativity that had won the day. But those who did saw it clearly. Humanity had stepped into the galactic stage, no longer weak, no longer overlooked. Admiral Voss, looking at the stars, whispered to herself, "They will never underestimate us again." Closing hook, a new beginning. The Droll swarm would return. That was certain. But now, the galaxy had a new truth. Humans were not to be ignored. Humans were not weak. Humans were not predictable. They were dangerous. And they were unstoppable when they refused to surrender. The Zeroth, the young species they saved, and even those who had once mocked them now understood the truth. What humanity sent changed everything. The galaxy would never be the same again. And somewhere in the void, the stars watched silently as humanity prepared for the battles to come.